Hey there everyone, welcome to Afrodo Reviews, where I review books and tell you, are they worth reading over second breakfast? And welcome to another, well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a reading vlog, I think I still did it wrong, but this is more of a reading wrap-up of my month. Due to the month of October being what it is, I did a lot more of my reading on my Kindle Unlimited, and so, at least, on my breaks at work and other such areas where I wouldn't necessarily be able to have a book on me, but I still wanted to read. I come back here, I'm gonna pet you. Vegas. Vegas. I missed my chance, guys. But anyway, so obviously I built up a bit more of a small reading backlog of books that I like, but I'm not sure I can necessarily talk about at the moment, like in a full-on review. Okay, to be fair, I could talk about one in a full-on review, but I don't think it would amount to much other than me saying, wow, this book was unfunny. But we'll get to that in a sec. So, the three books that I've read in this month that I'm not necessarily making a review on. The Obsidian Murders by Nicole Broner. Now, this is a Kindle Unlimited book, and I think it was written by a fellow booktuber, although if it is, the name of who it is escaping me. If I can find it later in my research, I'll put it up here. But this is a book written by Nicole Broner, and it's another cozy mystery. Now, while I read this book, I found it as a mostly okay book. It's better than the other cozy mystery I've read this year. The other cozy urban fantasy mystery I've read this year, Melancholy Magic, by leagues. But unfortunately, that is a very low bar to overcome. And obviously, I wouldn't say it's not nearly as good as Dresden Files. But that's, again, a very high bar to try to overcome. It's like putting Mike Tyson up against, an amateur boxer. Yeah, I mean, they're both trying to do the same thing, but one's gonna just to get destroyed. But needless to say, it was an alright read. I had my fair share of issues with it. One early part in the book that I laughed at is the author had a very ham-fisted way of saying that Tessa, our main character, is a good journalist. It comes off more of a braggart kind of thing, rather than displaying that she's a good journalist, being stuck with crappy jobs. Overall, I feel like this book tried to go too cozy. I feel like this book tried to go too cozy with its mystery, especially since the mystery starts off with the murder of two different people. I never once felt like the tension ever rose or there was ever a need for Tessa to be on the case. It just sort of kind of meandered along for most part. Yes, I know you're upset about being locked in here, but there is poison out there. It's hard to say if this is just early book jitters, sort of like the first Dresden File books, being my least favorite of the books, because I don't know if it's using its setting, it's using the mystery mostly to just set up the setting, so it's not focused on making the mystery strong. But, again, like I said, I think it's a little too cozy for my liking. At no point did I ever feel like there was tension or there was any kind of challenge to the narrative. Everything is just kind of easily handled. Our main character isn't even there for the main climax of the book. She literally sits on the sidelines, and I don't even mean observing it. I mean, here's the building she's hiding in. Here's where the action is actually happening. And it's just a very disappointing and boring climax for what I was hoping for. Like I said, it feels like a very limp-wristed way to do it. It's way too. It might just be my preference. I just think it's a little too cozy for my liking, I guess, because cozy seems to mean a mystery novel with no real stakes or investment, as I'm starting to learn. But even then, Melancholy Magic, it at least had some tension to it. Like, I thought the character was stupid for ignoring it as much as she is, but at least it felt like there was some danger to the character, especially since it was her house and her privacy being violated throughout the book. Yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say about the book. Little too cozy for my liking. It might be worth it to some people, but for me, I wouldn't call it any bigger than a 5 out of 10. Book 2 is actually more of a comic book thing, and I read The Batman The Long Halloween. Obviously, for the month of October, it felt like an appropriate addition to read. Now, Batman The Long Halloween, I don't know too much of the history behind it, but reading it myself, it did try to explore more of Batman's detective roots, to a degree. Now, when I initially... It's hard to really talk about this comic without giving away spoilers, but the story is sort of an early career Batman, I would say, almost, as he deals with a lot of his rogues gallery and a new person that's arising throughout Gotham City, and one of the origins of Two-Face. Now, the origin is of a killer you probably don't hear much about. It's called the Holiday Killer, and they always kill on holiday. The twist of who the killer is a tad confusing. I think it's very much left up to debate for the reader, because it actually gives you four different people. No, actually, it gives you three different people who could have been the Holiday Killer in the long run. The guy who confessed, who may have done one or two, and was definitely trying to do one when he got caught. Then a couple more characters who also admit to being the Holiday Killer to a degree. And it's just one of those... I think the idea was to leave it open-ended and let you decide who was the Holiday Killer. Again, I can't give you any of who they would have been without spoiling the mystery, but one of the things I can say is the art about this is a little bit... I think it would be a bit of a hit or miss. It's a very exaggerated art style. I liked it, but I do think it would put some people off. There were certain portions where the Joker's chin is like all the way out here, but his skull's all the way back here. It's very Toon-like. It's very Toon-like at times. Like I said, I actually do like Catwoman's design in this one, though, surprisingly. Selina Kyle, though, at her non-Catwoman persona, that dude, man, I'm not one to complain. But like, there are a couple panels in this comic where it's just like her face, her due, and that's all you can see in that panel. But overall, I do think it was well worth the read, and I appreciated the time that it took to read it. I would definitely give this book more of a 8 out of 10. I'll stick with an 8 out of 10. It was a decent mystery, it was a good Batman story, and it gives you the origin of Two-Face, and one of the themes that I did like that it explored was the replacement of traditional crime with the freaks that come to plague Gotham City, such as, the Joker, Selina Kyle as Catwoman, Mad Hatter, the Scarecrow. Mad Hatter's in this, by the way. He's an underutilized Batman villain. But yeah, otherwise. Now, the next book is the one I said I could probably make a review on. The Bookshop and the Barbarian by Morgan Stang. Yes, Stang. I think that's how you pronounce her last name, or his last name. I admit I did not do a lot of research on this book. Or the author, I guess, would be a better way to put it. Yeah, this is one of the books I didn't like very much. I won't say I hated it. It's not that bad, but I did not like it in the slightest. It's a bad comedy. Now, I know some people have said it in the past, some actually famous people, but one of the worst things in the world that you can make is a bad comedy. Because something that's trying to be serious can be so bad it's funny. But if you're a comedy and you're bad, you're just nothing. And it's just one of these, I don't think... This book feels like it was written for children. It has that juvenile sense of humor. But it clearly wasn't written for children. But it's not even just the sense of humor. The plot is very juvenile. It's another one of those cozy things. I'm starting to think I just don't like cozy stuff. Well, I do. I think I like well-written. Whatever. I'm not gonna throw shade. But it's another one of those cozy things. And again, it's one of those things where it just feels like cozy is an easy way of saying I'm writing my book without any stakes or tension. And I feel like cozy could be like, there should be stakes and tension, just not high stakes and tension. Not if I don't do this, the town is going to be destroyed, but more closer to, if I don't do this, I have to hang my head and go back home a failure. That kind of thing, you know? No, the smaller scale is how I would define cozy, I guess. But one of the issues with this book is, I took a lot of notes on my book, and look, there's a lot of notes. About 5 pages worth of notes. And it's just, there's a lot to say about this book. Like, the book is too meta. Not only has everyone who has had a pretty obvious drop of how much they need to read this bookshop our character is open, they need something to do while sitting there, but they always cut off our character to hawk their business. It's sort of like you're playing an RPG, and the RPG is being very ham-fisted about the next part of the plot you need to do. There are also several scenes where it feels like certain things are just made to be there to create either a problem or to create a solution that Morgan Stang herself put in the book. Like, the character first gets there and finds that the bookshop that she bought is infested by goblins. Now, obviously, the easy solution will just get the town guard and get them to chase out the goblins, because they're squatters. She doesn't even want them killed, she just wants them chased out. Oh, well, it turns out the king passed a law saying that you can't hurt goblins at all. In fact, if a goblin sleeps, you must leave it there where it lays, because goblins are an extinct species. Or not an extinct, or an endangered species. This had potential, and the author does bring it back in a way that sort of justifies it, but it's kind of one of those, it's such a stupid decree, it doesn't make sense, especially since she keeps invoking D&D kind of feelings, like, oh, I need to get rid of the goblins, but the law won't help me. I guess I need to go hire a murder hobo. And this also brings another issue to my thing, where she constantly references stuff where it doesn't feel like she understands what she's referencing. Like murder hobos in D&D. In this book, she just it's just something, she seems like she uses it just to say they're adventurers who don't work inside the law. No, a murder hobo is literally a psychopathic character who kills anything and everything the moment it doesn't have a defined use. A murder hobo would not be in a bar having drinks. A murder hobo would be threatening to cut the bartender's throat unless he gives him a discount on his drinks, and when the bartender says no, burns down the entire town in retaliation. That's a murder hobo. I can speak for that. My camera is literally balanced on my stack of D&D books. Actually, part of my stack of D&D books. I have a ton over there. And it's just, this is kind of one of those books that tries to be too self-aware for its own good. Again, it's too meta. Because when she goes to the bar to find the murder hobo, she's not allowed in without a mysterious cloak to hide her. But don't worry, the doorman has a complimentary mysterious cloaks right here. And this is also a book that is a sapphic romance. But the romance is so just not there. It's just, I don't ever feel like these characters are romantic partners. They might be friends. And, like, maybe, if you really stretch, best friends. But romantic partners, they are not. At least not in terms of chemistry. They don't feel like it. It just feels like randomly they go from being sort of strangers to, I guess I do have a crush on her. Oh, no, actually, not even that. It's more, it goes to, I guess I love her. Like, there are some sweet moments here and there, but again, nothing justifies the I love you and big damn kiss at the end. The main villain is so, again, juvenile. Like I said, this book feels like it was written for kids. She comes in, declares her evil intentions, even flat out acknowledges what she's doing is wrong, which a good villain doesn't think what they're doing is wrong. Like, even Puss in Boots Jack Horner, the most evil character in that movie and the one that's unapologetically evil, doesn't see himself in the wrong.
What did I do to deserve this? I mean, what specifically?
He doesn't go there saying, like, I'm going to build uncomfortable housing tenants because this town is expanding and I'm a landlord and therefore I must make my tenants as uncomfortable as possible because I am evil like a landlord. Oh, but that also has a stupid resolution where the character's basically like, I hate you. You are my enemy for my favorite book series as a child. Never mind, we are best friends now. And it's just, You know what I mean? Again, it's so juvenile. This feels like it was written for children. There's also the whole subplot. It's just there's so much wrong with this. There's so much with this book that I don't enjoy. Here, I'm just gonna go through one. Okay, and one of the characters, Asteria. Her characterization is all over this place. Sometimes she's the stoic, badass character whose first solution to any problem is, I'm going to hit you with my axe. There's a running joke, which admittedly did get a laugh out of me at one point, but she keeps trying to get Mirabelle to go through the solution of using the table for sale technique, where Mirabelle will go out, pretend to offer to sell a table to someone, and then hit him in the face with the table. And, that sets up the characterization of a somewhat simple-minded person whose first solution is physical and will think that they're the problems if they only have a single choice. But then later on, the book tries to characterize her almost like a giant child. Someone who's caught up in the whimsy of the world and stops and would just like to admire the scenery sometimes, absolutely loves cute animals, and thinks through problems and has profound observations about the world. And it's just one of those, they conflict with how often she leans so much into others. Like, I'm not joking when I say sometimes Asteria's first solution is literally, I'm going to kill it with my axe. But other times her first solution is, I found a pumpkin pie and it's my favorite thing in the world and I'm going to go eat them all.
Robin, please refrain from the interruptions. I do not wish to give you the mark of the checks.
And it's just kind of like, I think what the author was trying to do is something more akin to Sten from Dragon Age Origins. This big, brutish, stoic character whose life is lived by a rigid code, but has a sense of whimsy to him that you only get to know about if you get to know him, like how he loves cookies, and I believe he loves small animals. It's been a while since I played the game. But unfortunately, Sten's characterization is much more consistent with how they do it. He has these moments, yes, but they don't override his stoicness even in those moments. His seriousness about how much he loves them actually is part of the joke sometimes. Like, he legitimately believes that Ferelden's greatest invention is cookies. And that if, when the Qunari invade Ferelden, that's the one thing they need to make sure they take. But he says it with such a seriousness that it's amusing.
You have a thing. It doesn't have a word in the Qunari tongue. Little baked things like bread, but sweet and crumbly. Yes, we have no such things in our lands. This should be remedied.
There's also a twist involving the Mirabelle character that feels like it was only added to overcome a problem that was put on the Asteria's character. And it comes off like, here's a forced solution to the forced problem I added to the story. When in reality, you could just get rid of both, and I think the story would be better overall for it. Also, as my last point, Morgan Stange has a habit of what I think is supposed to be polite references end up feeling like she's trying to punch up at authors who wrote much better books than she did. And, it just, because she takes shots at J.R.R. Tolkien's work, Travis Baldry's Legends and Latte book, and she even takes a shot at Ernest Hemingway. And it's just one of those, stop punching above your pay grade. You're like a little child trying to beat up a weightlifter here. And like I said, if these were polite references, they would have made more sense. But they just they don't feel polite. They go on for too long, and the language in referencing them is way too derogatory for what she's trying to say. But yeah, overall, I would give this book at most a 4 out of 10. It's definitely not something I would read again or even recommend, but since it is a comedy, and comedy is one of the most subjective things out there, it's not something I can necessarily say stay away from, because you may find it way more funny than I did. I did read somewhere that Morgan Stange tends to write more darker and less cozy books, and I may be interested to see what she does with that. As it stands, her cozy work is, I don't think I would recommend it personally, but again, being a comedy, obviously it's something that you have to decide for yourself if you like. So, but yeah, that's all I gotta say for my minor TBR, or my reading vlog number 2. So with that being said, just remember, that every book comes in adventure, and every adventure's worth having, even the bad ones.